Hey guys, welcome to another movie review. Today I'm talking about an older film from the early 2000s. I believe this film came out in 2001. I saw parts of it on TV years ago. Never really saw the whole thing. I've vaguely heard about some of the stuff that was loosely based off real life to get this film made. Its inspiration and everything. But that's the original Jeepers Creepers. I'm reviewing that for you today right here. Um, and if I have time, I can try to go over what's kind of loosely based off of real things. I've seen videos online of, oh, well, this thing from this moment was taken for this scene for Jeepers Creepers and stuff like that. So hopefully I'll have time at the end of the video for that. But in this movie, though, you guys, it's about a brother and a sister. They are driving home for spring break. They're excited to see friends and family. But on the way home, they encounter this really creepy truck that is going past the speed limit, practically almost runs them off the road. And they keep driving down the road. They just kind of like, oh, forget it. He's probably just drunk or something like that. So they drive down the road and they see that same truck that they saw earlier. And it's this really creepy abandoned church. And there's this sewer line opening that the person who was driving the truck was dumping some dead bodies down. So they're really creeped out by this. Clearly, this creeper guy saw them doing this. He kind of was watching them as they were driving by. So basically, they're scared now. They want to make sure this is taken care of before they go home for spring break. So they track down some local residents. They track down police. And they're basically trying to do everything in their power to get this man arrested and to make sure that the people who might have been in those body bags are still alive and can still be treated for, the hospital and can still live their life and everything like that. So throughout the course of this film, they find out more about this man slash creature, how this creature has characteristics of a human being, but there's kind of a story behind why this creature looks like a person, why it has a certain suit, a certain hat, why it looks a certain way in its face. They find out weird things about it too, like it wakes up every 23 springs and just goes on this huge feeding frenzy for like almost a month straight. It looks for certain things on people, like if it likes your eyes, or it likes your lips, it likes your forehead, it likes your hands. It'll just eat that, and then it'll go find the next thing that it wants to use to basically keep it alive for all this time. And then as the film progresses too, there's people who live in the town that clearly knew about this creature that are trying to basically ignore it because it's been a part of that place for so long that people are just trying to basically survive not being a victim of the creature and things like that. So throughout the course of this film, this brother and this sister, and along with the police department and some other people in the town, have to basically try to figure out what can we do to kind of stop this creature once and for all. What is it specifically looking for? It can track you down by your smell if it really wants something from you. And so basically the brother and sister had to figure out which one of them the victim that this creature wants, because it was sniffing their clothes and their back of their car and things like that. So throughout the course of this film, they have to figure out what can we do to stop this creature and make sure that this town is no longer haunted by this entity that keeps haunting them every 23 springs. But overall, guys, I thought Jeepers Creepers was a really good movie. Like I said, I briefly saw certain clips from it way, way back in the day. I remember when my town here in McFarland, Wisconsin had a Hollywood Video. I remember they had like promotional posters for this. They had tons of copies on the shelves back when this first came out. So this film is kind of a big deal. I mean, it really creeped a lot of people out. There's even a quote from Clive Barker, who worked on the Hellraiser films and the Candyman films. His quote was, "This is the most scary, stylish horror movie I've seen in years." So for him to say that, that's saying a lot, because Clive Barker has made some really creepy stuff over the years. And for him to say that Jeepers Creepers is creepy really kind of tells you just kind of how creepy it kind of can be at times. So let's go over some positives and negatives of what I liked about the movie. First and foremost, this film is very scary. So if you're very squeamish, if you don't watch a lot of horror films or scary movies, this film is not going to be for you, just because there is a lot of creepy moments. I guess I can briefly kind of go over what was loosely based off a real thing to kind of get this film made. The part where I was telling you that the creeper was dumping bodies into like this sewer thing while the people were driving by, and then he kind of wants to make them the victims too. So I guess I saw a video online of somebody who lived, I think, in Indiana somewhere or something, and there was this old abandoned schoolhouse, kind of like this abandoned church in this movie. and somebody had a grudge against like two of the teachers in the schoolhouse or something. People who didn't live in the town were driving by, saw the whole thing happen as they were trying to basically rid of the bodies after this murder, and they tried to go after them and try to kill them as well. So basically, that small little moment in our real life history kind of inspired that scene in Jeepers Creepers. So there's just small things like that that they borrowed from real life to get this film made and really make it feel as creepy as possible. But like I said, it's a very scary movie. If you're looking for a good scare, if you're looking for something that's really going to thrill you from and chill your bones, Jeepers Creepers is going to do the trick. I also like how this film focuses on two lead characters who are very brave. They go through a lot of things that I don't think a lot of people would normally go through. Some people would just be too terrified to explore some of the stuff that they are willing to explore, like that little sewer tunnel thing that this creature has. They want to go explore it, make sure people are still alive, that they can get help and everything. So there's a lot of admirable qualities between these two lead characters just because of the fact that they really do want to make sure that this creature isn't around anymore and that people can kind of live their life in this town as they're driving by it and things like that. So really admirable qualities of the two lead characters in this movie. I also thought the overall creature in the film was very creepy and very well written in the sense that they really found a creature that really kind of terrify you, really get under your bones, really kind of creep you out as far as what he's capable of. And just the fact that when he goes on these feeding frenzies, he just does not stop. He goes for certain eyes, certain lips, certain hands. So I thought they really wrote a really effective, creepy creature for this movie. I also like how this film takes place in the middle of nowhere. Because this film takes place in 2001, roughly when the film came out, yeah, 2001. Cell phones were still kind of new. There weren't any iPhones yet. There wasn't any kind of, like hotspots you could grab from if you were far away somewhere at the time. It was basically just cell phones and payphones still. And when I say cell phones, I mean basic flip phones like what I have here, like stuff like that. Like they didn't have any smartphones back then. So I like how it was kind of in the middle of nowhere, and it really kind of adds to the movie. They really kind of didn't have a lot of options. If they needed a gas station or help, they really kind of had to go out of their way and drive very far and wide to kind of find that form of help. So I really like how the setting really kind of helped the movie, really make it feel creepier and kind of make it feel like these two lead characters are limited on options as far as ridding this creature goes. I also like kind of the creepy tunnel and the creepy car that this character drove around. It really does kind of add to the movie. It really does really make this character feel even more creepy and kind of what he's capable of. Just the tunnel alone and just the stuff he has down there is just really, really scary and creepy. And the car that he drives around is obviously a really reckless force that you don't want to be around when you're driving around because it'll just ram you off the road. So I really kind of like all the stuff that they did with the creature, and I thought that part of the film was very effective. But for my negatives of Jeepers Creepers, unfortunately, this film is really not written very well. As far as dialogue is concerned, some of the editing in this film really isn't very good either. There's a scene near the beginning of the film that really isn't spoiling anything because it's literally like the first 15 minutes of the movie where Justin Long and his sister, who I believe is played by Gina Phillips, they're talking about stuff in this car before the creeper guy gets introduced. And it feels like the editor took certain clips from different conversations and pieced them together. It really has a very choppy quality to it. It really feels like they probably recorded 10 different conversations to use for the scene, borrowed like 5 different conversations, pieced them together, and it doesn't feel natural. It doesn't feel like a real conversation. There's even parts where some of Justin Long's dialogue is kind of cut off, or there's certain parts where it feels like his dialogue from a different conversation is pulled into one scene that doesn't involve that conversation. And so there's certain aspects of the editing like that that really kind of bugged me in it. Certain scenes too where the creature's kind of showing off some of the more creepiest things that he does. It feels like they kind of borrowed certain clips from certain takes and things like that. So there's certain editing choices that really weren't very good for me. And like I said, as a result, some of the dialogue feels very choppy in this movie. So I thought some of the editing could have been better in the movie overall. And unfortunately, because this film came out in 2001, CGI was still a very new thing at the time. We were still kind of trying to figure out what we wanted to do with it. So as a result, when the film does choose to use CGI, specifically when the creature has wings that it likes to fly around with, um, it really doesn't look very good. It really did not age very well, unfortunately. The wings look like something you would see in like a Windows 95 graphic from back when those were around. Um, I really was not impressed with the CGI in this film, specifically in the wings of the creature whenever you see those. I also thought this film kind of lost momentum towards the third act. It just kind of, all the creepy stuff kind of started to slow down. The film kind of ends more in a punchline than a conclusion, really. It clearly does set up for a sequel, which I do have here if I choose to review that, of the Jeepers Creepers 2. Um, but for me personally, there was something about the third act that just kind of lost momentum for me, and it really just kind of pauses the film in a way. And I'm almost wondering how they could have kept that momentum going towards the third act. There's also a character in this film that I really like. I really liked this character, but there's certain things about her I didn't like. There's a sidekick that lives in the town that knows basically about the creature. That's kind of how we learn about it. It's things like that. Um, but what I didn't like about this town sidekick was not only did they not go over her origin and how she knows all this stuff, but it felt like very lazy writing. It felt like, well, we got to explain the creature still. We have to explain something to kind of make these two brave lead characters a little more aware of what's going on in the town and things like that. So we'll just dump all this information with this character. So by the time she shows up in the movie, she'll explain the creature's origin. She'll explain how she knew where they were. And it just kind of felt very lazy. It felt like one of those things where they had all this stuff they wanted to cover. The film's only 90 minutes. And so because they were running out of time, they just kind of dumped it all on this character so that by the time we are introduced to her physically in the film, it's just kind of, well, her character's used to explain the creature, or her character's used to explain how she knew where they were going and things like that. So for me, it just kind of felt like lazy writing to me, and I really enjoyed this character. I really wish they could have done more with her. It felt like a very important character that they could have really done more with in the movie. But overall, I'm going to give Jeepers Creepers an 8.5 out of 10. It's very effectively creepy. There's tons of things I like about it. They definitely wrote a very scary creature to focus on for a movie. But unfortunately, the editing of this film is really not very good. Some of the writing is kind of bad. Early CGI, or early 2000 CGI, really kind of hurt the film for me. It loses momentum in the third act. And the town sidekick is just kind of the background dump information that they needed to just kind of get it off their chest for the viewer to know, and they could have just wrote an interesting character instead. But 8.5 out of 10 for me. Really like the film. I may or may not review Jeepers Creepers 2, so I'll stay tuned. I might review that one as well.